Yeah, we'll be going live in a while. I believe we are live.
Okay.
Yes, we are live. So have all the teams renamed themselves?
Yes.
Yeah, hi everyone. Welcome to the philosophy Socratic dialogue.
Guys.
So we'll be starting in a while.
So this week's Socratic dialogue will be about why study philosophy, and
Okay.
our board teams are gonna now introduce themselves. So, team one, please, you can.
Yeah,
Hi, I'm Yashita.
yeah, audio.
I yeah, I'm Yashita. I work in PMF lab and I'm the coach of Team Constructivist.
Thank you, Yashita. Who's going in next?
Hi, I'm Mariam. I'm part
Yeah,
of TLS Lab and I'm a part of Team Constructive.
okay.
Hi, hi everyone. I am Rushabh Patel. I am a part of CRM lab and a member of Team Constructivist.
Okay. Thank you, Rishabh.
Hello everyone, I'm Vibhor Mehra. I'm from HVT Lab and I'm the coach of Team Wisdom Warriors.
Hi everyone, I'm Ria Glati and I'm part of the LIS lab and I'm part of the Team Wisdom Warriors.
My name is Suchanda, and I am also a part of the team Wisdom Warriors.
Yeah, so hello everyone. I will be the moderator of this SD. My name is Shubham. Hope we have fun discussing about this.
Hi, I'm Shubham. I will be the co-mod of this Socratic dialogue.
Yeah. Hi everyone, Tarun here. I'm also a co-moderator for today. So over to one of the teams for the answer box. Who would like to go into the answer box first?
We would like to go first.
Okay, team constructivists in the answer box. You have your quick 60 seconds for your pitch.
Okay, hello everyone. We are Team Constructivist. Constructivist because the term constructivism in psychology implies that people don't just absorb knowledge, but they understand concepts step by step through questions and experience and reframing ideas. Now we are gonna talk about philosophy. Philosophy helps us notice the hidden assumptions that shape people's thoughts. Uh, we now our thoughts generally are scattered, and in a library, we have to sort out the books for so that people can find the correct book they want to find and gain knowledge. It also gives us tools like representation and concepts that compress complex ideas into something we can actually use. Okay, thank you. Can we move on to the first slide now? Why study philosophy? Now, we all carry hidden assumptions we all carry hidden assumptions in the way we think about the different things. Now, philosophy is like a flashlight that helps us spot these blind spots. It is less about giving us answers and more about teaching us how to ask sharper questions, how to frame thought different thoughts. It is like peeling an onion. Every layer you remove reveals something new underneath it. Can we move on to the next slide, please?
Seconds.
Organizing ideas, thinking about how we arrange things in a library, like I said, where there are so many books scattered, you will not be able to find any book, and there
Go to the next
even
one.
the
Yeah.
if there are
Mariam got you. Can we
if,
keep going faster? Yeah.
yes, okay.
Okay, so presentation versus interpretation, right? So presentation is something which shows through a image or model a bigger picture, a bigger meaning. And interpretation is a term which is more dependent on the viewers, the person who is seeing that image or model, right? So, for example, like a map, it shows all the routes, but let's assume there are two different people with different perspectives might find two different routes best for them to reach a certain destination, right? On to the next slide. Uh, Another thing is the power of concepts. So there are so many words, right, which have a very bigger meaning behind them, right? So, but these concepts are very useful. They are like easy access to a bigger idea, a greater learning like frameworks, etc. Right? For example, but there is a catch. Different people with different kind of culture or experience or expertise in the different fields might call that same idea with different words. For example, ROI in business terms versus growth mindset in philosophy. Right. On to the next slide.
So when we talk about problem solving, so here we'll talk about George Polya's framework that he emphasizes on connecting the unknown things to something that you're already aware of and having a relation between the same. Like when you talk about riding a bicycle and learning how to ride a bike. So when you already know the fundamentals of riding a bicycle, it gets comparatively easier to learn how to ride a motorbike.
Mhm.
So to conclude everything, philosophy does not provide us all the answers, but it builds a habit in us to question everything rather than taking the assumptions. Like if you talk about going to a gym does not provide you any guarantee that you will be healthy, but it gives you all of the right equipments which can help you in being healthy. Thank you.
Mm. Okay. To the question box, it's open for you. If you have any question, you can ask.
Okay, so in the end, there is one point where, like, connecting unknown things with the known things. So, how you are going to use this framework into your work life to connecting unknown things to known things? If you can give some example.
So when we talk about making content, as we do in PMF Lab, so the idea of hybrid carousel is very new to us. So when we connect it to a basic carousel, like how exactly make a founder-based carousel. So there's a connection between the two. Almost the frameworks are similar, but we have some different aspects that needs to be considered. So when you already know how to make a founder-based carousel, then making a hybrid carousel comparatively gets easier. So that is how you can relate it to the work that we are doing.
Okay. Any follow-up question?
I have a different question actually. So, how can philosophy actually help us see things that we normally don't notice?
Well, when we
You are on mute, Maria.
so when we try to list different ideas out, we can if we're listing them out, we can see different gaps in between our ideas, and thereafter we can try using those gaps to understand things that are not there or new things.
Mm.
Since this philosophy is like very subjective, okay, like people tend to have different perspectives on their own for like every solution of every problem. So how are we gonna get on the same track for like for a particular thing? How can we align everyone's thoughts to get like one particular solution?
Mm.
So
Okay.
it's about exploring new ideas and finding common points in them because in all of the perspective there's something which is common in all of them. So it's about finding the common solutions everywhere and then analyzing all the solutions and coming up with the right solution.
And also, I would like to add that the power of concepts like comes in here. If anyone has an idea, you can make a concept from that, a framework like thing. You can establish a concept which can be used by everyone. That is like, establishing an idea that works in every kind of culture or anything you can say.
Okay. All right, Shubham. Thank you.
Okay, so I have one question that you said the power of experimentation and experimenting things. So when we are experimenting and somewhere around we also fail, right? So how psychology can help us to rebuild from that failure?
Okay, so psychology and philosophy doesn't directly help us in any solutions, right? But it gives us a certain kind of thought process, a mindset, which make us question the solution more and more. How to come up answers. It basically structures our thought process to achieve on a solution or to understand a problem, or like what I am trying to say here is philosophy is not a direct answer to any questions or any solutions, but philosophy structure our problems and solutions so that we can reach on a certain understanding, right?
To add on to that, failure is a part of every process, but what is required is not to take a failure in a negative way, but actually question that failure itself. Why did I actually fail? And learn from those gaps and try to improve in the next experiment that you're doing.
I have a question. How does breaking down a problem into like smaller pieces actually help us?
1 minute. So I'd appreciate if the question box can build on the question rather than moving into new threads all the time, right? So look, Socratic dialogue is not about asking a lot of disconnected questions. It's about once we start a thread, we can probe a little deeper into the thread, and after we little satisfied with the probing, then we can move into a new thread. Okay, so you guys mentioned that philosophy is not about getting answers, but it's about structuring things. And you said that, okay, after you fail, you'll probably get some knowledge out of it. My question is, then how is philosophy different from the other subjects itself, right? Because every subject is trying to learn from failure, is trying to learn from experiences, and is trying to document it. So, how is philosophy different from, say, a physics or an economics or a humanities, right? I mean, say a psychology, because every subject is also trying to learn. How is it different is my question.
When you talk about science or other subjects, what happens there is there's a concept which is already built and there are no questions asked. Philosophy, what
No,
happens
but in
is
every subject, you do ask questions. When you do research in a subject, when you do research in physics or you do research in economics, you ask questions, right?
it's about looking things with different perspectives and then figuring out what exactly is the thing
So
that
in
we're
the
talking.
subject, you do look at things from different perspectives, no? In economics, there's Keynesian economics. There are different paradigms of economics. So likewise, you look at physics, Newton looked at it in one way. Einstein looked at it in a different way. There are paradigms, right? So there are perspectives, and those perspectives lead to different paradigms. So how is philosophy then different from the, subjects?
uh, okay, I think that the question is like, why Einstein has this kind of observation over a certain problem. Why Newton has this kind of observation over this certain problem. That is, I think, is made through his or his whole life. They had a certain philosophy in their mind, and
My
that
question
is
is, what is philosophy? We are
okay.
using the word philosophy very loosely here. What is philosophy? Is philosophy also a subject like physics, chemistry, psychology, economics, literature?
I think it's about challenging assumption and asking question
My
about it.
question is it a subject?
Yes.
It is a subject, right? It's taught
Hmm.
in university as a subject, right?
Hmm.
So then how is this philosophy as a subject different from the others? Shubham tells me that It's about challenging assumptions. It's about asking questions and so on. So how is it different? Because the challenging assumptions and all, we do it in physics also. We do it in economics also. We do it in literature also.
Well, philosophy is about understanding the basic concepts of life that generally we overlook at times. It is like, more than anything, philosophy is generally related with the humongous questions about what is our purpose of life. That is one big question that is related to philosophy. So it is not about the study itself is about basic questions about things about concepts so that we are able to better understand other things that are built upon them. So, like example, I said, what is my purpose of life? If we have established that, then we can move forward and
So
go
are you
on and
telling
do
me that
different things like
philosophy
become
is
a
okay?
doctor.
So are you telling me philosophy is just about my understanding of life, my thought process? That seems to be more of spirituality or more about my existence. So is philosophy just about that?
No, no, no. I meant that as an example. Philosophy is about asking questions about different things. It is not just related
But
to
in
one
every
thing.
subject also
It
you
can
ask
be about
questions. No, in every subject also you ask questions. So how is philosophy different? Is my question.
In every
like
subject,
this
we ask
Socratic.
questions, but in every subject, we ask a specific question. Like, let's just say, when we discovered gravity, we asked question, why the apple fall, right? But when we said like, we ask fundamental why. Why should we believe in something? Like, what does it mean to be exist or to be true? Or let's just say, what is logic? What is justice? So these type of questions are fundamental questions, and are these
But those
questions are
fundamental
also.
questions also exist in the subject. No, for example, in social sciences, you will ask, why do we need justice? That's a question in social
Hmm.
sciences. So these questions will exist in a subject. No,
Why
why do
do
we
we
need
need
philosophy?
justice? That is true, but we didn't ask what is justice. That is a foundational question.
Exactly, but that's a question again in social science. No, what is justice?
No, I think what philosophy is about is not just asking questions, but it is also related to like every subject. It can be related to every other subject. Philosophy is also used in every subject where we are asking different questions. Like where we are doing this SB, we are doing this Socratic dialogue. It is to we are understanding how to understand different ideas better, and we have come up with this questioning thing where we ask
So
different
you're
questions
applying
to get
philosophy on
deeper.
philosophy now.
But philosophy
Yes,
exists in
For
different
yes,
subjects
as
too, na?
exactly.
as per
Huh?
my understanding, philosophy is deep thinking, right? So in every subject, we are using deep thinking to asking
Is
questions.
philosophy deep thinking is my question then. Philosophy
Yes.
involves deep thinking, but is philosophy deep thinking?
I think a person's like way of thinking is his or her philosophy.
We're using the word loosely. Let's not just use colloquial definitions of philosophy. I'm asking what is philosophy, right? The academic definition of philosophy. Philosophy originates from phil Sophie, which is love for knowledge. So philosophy is a subject which is concerning with nature of knowledge, how we acquire knowledge, and various mechanisms of getting that knowledge. That is what is philosophy. So philosophy can give us an apparatus for questioning. If I'm a scientist and I want to have better questions, I'm an economist, I want to have better questions, I can move into philosophy to borrow some questions from philosophy to move into my own discipline. And philosophy also tends to challenge different subjects and improve the way in which that subject is done, right? Philosophy shapes subjects, which is why, like in science, people are taught philosophy of science, right? This philosophy of language, where you're challenging the subject itself. So now when Yashita, you're speaking of learning from failure and organizing, what is the role of philosophy in learning from that failure? Let's say I have an intention to learn from failure. Do I end up learning from failure just because I have an intention to learn from failure?
No, not always.
So then what is the role of philosophy as a tool to learn from that failure?
I would like to answer that. Here, philosophy is about we use philosophy to understand why we failed in the first time and what can be done differently this time so that we are not going to fail, so that we learn something from
Why use philosophy for this? What
because
value does philosophy? What value does philosophy add while asking this particular question?
Well, if we don't understand why we failed in the first time, how are we gonna make
No,
it
no, no.
different in the
I'm not challenging that understanding why we failed is important. I'm asking,
yeah.
while trying to understand why we failed, what role or what help does philosophy offer?
Well, philosophy helps us understand it in a better, more substantial
How?
way where
How?
we
How?
get
How? 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 How?
yes. Like I began in the first slide, it helps us organize our thoughts
How?
as to uh, when we're talking about philosophy and we are talking about how. Okay, so we're going to list down, okay, the one thing that went wrong is this, another thing that went wrong is this, and then third and fourth, and then we're also going to list out that these are the
Okay, so you're saying
various
philosophy helps you
instances.
study causation. A
No,
caused
it
B,
helps
right? The failure has to have some cause. One thing that philosophy can
causation.
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Causation is a result of philosophy. It is a result because we understand, okay, so we have to understand what and how, and here, this is how we can understand it, and this is how causation comes into being.
Yeah. So one is it tries to probe various possible causes, right? It tries to probe the causation there. So you know, okay, why something failed. And again, a lot of times we use words. So philosophy also brings in semantics with it, right? Like, I mean, of course, semantics is within linguistics, but philosophy also brings in semantic questions. So like, what does this even mean? And philosophy brings in the apparatus to ask these questions to challenge what is taken for granted. For example, you said that we'll learn from the failure. So it's taken for granted that, okay, I'm learning from the failure. But it's important to go one step further and ask, what does it mean to learn from the failure? What do I do for it? So you're saying, I want to know the cause. So then to know what do you mean by the cause? And how do I know that this is actually the cause? How do I know that, maybe I don't have some other cause? There again, the two very interesting subjects of philosophy. One is epistemology, other is ontology. Epistemology is the subject which is concerning with how I got to that knowledge. Ontology is concerning existence. What does that something mean? So by having these structures, right, like on epistemic questions, ontological questions. So, and again, one very interesting concept in philosophy is epistemological simplicity leads to ontological complexity, and ontological simplicity leads to epistemological complexity. What does that mean? If I'm able to simplify my understanding of how I got to know something, my understanding of what that something is becomes very complex. If I can make something simple, okay, let's say I want to, let's say, what is a country? The existence of a country. What's a country? I want to simplify what's a country. Then my epistemological question becomes very difficult in terms of how did I get to know that this country exists? How do I get to know that this thing is there? So there's that very interesting observation that people have made in philosophy, right? That epistemological simplicity leads to ontological complexity, and ontological simplicity leads to epistemological complexity. And why
Pratik,
is
can you give
ontology
one
important?
more
Because there you can
example?
ask a question like, what is
Can you
India? Yeah.
give one more example?
Yeah. Like ontology, right? Like you ask, what is India? What is India? I'm asking you, what is India?
A country.
A
What is a
country,
country? I mean, show me. I want to see India. How does India exist?
a country with different cultures, different
There is
traditions, different.
No, you're telling me culture. I can't see culture. What is culture?
it is a territory with a definite population.
Okay, so this entire territory is India. The landmass is India. You're saying that this particular landmass is India.
The landmass and its population, the definite territory and its
So landmass
population.
and some people is India.
Yes.
Okay, so tomorrow if an earthquake happens and India goes into different pieces, is it India or is it not India? And if these Indians migrate to another country, is it India or is it not India? Because those people are no longer in India now. And if these Indians go to Australia and go there, does Australia also become India because these Indian people went to Australia? Because you said the people and the land is India.
let's you put several situations in there. So if the earthquake happens and the landform breaks into pieces, then there will be several definite parts of India. The territory will still remain. There will be several different parts of India. If Indian people go to Australia, they will still remain Indian as long as they accept that they are the Indian population. And there are certain ties that are connected to
Okay,
India
if I'm
will
a French
remain to them.
national, if I'm a French national and I accept that I'm an Indian, do I become an Indian national? And does the piece of land where I'm standing, does it become India?
Well, if you place the certain connections that we are associating with being Indian or being French, like your citizenship that is with India, we related to our Aadhaar
Okay,
or to
you're saying,
passports.
okay, if I have a citizenship, you'll accept. Okay. Now,
Uh,
okay, then if I'm a French national, I have a French passport, and I'm currently staying in India. So is this landmass India or not India? Because I'm not an Indian here.
See, like I said in the beginning, the territory is definite, the population is definite. We know that X, Y, Z persons are Indian because we
Okay,
have
so this
claimed them to be
particular
Indian.
definite territory and those Indian nationals with Indian passport is India.
Yes,
Now, what do you do about those Indians with Indian passport or not in India?
they are still Indians. They're
So are they
non-residential
a part of
Indians,
India or
but
they're
also
not a part of India?
yes.
But they're not an Indian territory. No, how are they a part of India then?
Because they're still the definite population that were associated from to India in the beginning.
Okay, I'll
Then they
stop
become
it
just
here.
non-residential
Okay,
Indians.
I'll stop it here, but I hope you understand why ontological questions are a little. I'll tell you when I started my college in ISER, my biology professor asked, "What is life?" We gave different examples. He said, "Is computer virus living or non-living?" Computer virus is able to reproduce, is able to do all of that. So is it not living? Then finally he concluded and said anything which can have metabolic process and all of this is which can reproduce, which has metabolic process and all of that is living. Then next semester, one more professor came from Stanford, from this National University of Singapore. He came and asked, then is a mule not living? Because mule can't reproduce. You said anything which can reproduce is living. It is sterile, right? Is it living or non-living? So then we got to know that what is life. Till today, there's no proper definition. People are still debating a proper definition of what does it mean for something to be living. And the biggest problem when people are asking this question, what is living, is when you ask when you deal with viruses, the human, I mean the viruses, right, which cause diseases, they're at the borderline of alive and dead because they go dormant in between. So philosophy helps us with that conceptual apparatus. It gives us the concepts through which we're able to break down knowledge and understand knowledge. And this is why world's best universities, when they're teaching a particular subject, they also have, the history and philosophy of that particular subject taught. For example, ISER, where I went to, we were taught history and philosophy of science. Generally, when you study the history and philosophy of a particular subject, our understanding of that subject improves. Yeah. Now I think we can move to the other team.
You can share the screen. So our team name is Wisdom Warriors. So philosophy is about seeking deeper understanding and wisdoms, challenging assumptions and solving complex problems, just like warriors face challenges head on. So now I will elaborate the summary of our pitch. So philosophy challenges our assumptions and helps us to think critically, turning abstract ideas into practical strategies. It helps define the key concepts of ownership and ensuring the alignment of across teams. So now moving forward to the first slide. So philosophy helps us to think about things that in a new way. So for example, if we are thinking about that we are bad at maths, then philosophy make us questioning that and help us to better find the better way. Then how it can be helpful to maybe we get at a better thought of how we can improve our math. move over to Ria.
So moving on to representation and interpretation, philosophy can actually help us, understand bigger ideas and we can turn them into something that we can actually do. For example, when we talk about growth at school, philosophy can help us figure out what growth really means. Put criterias on it, put rules on it, like learning better skills, being a leader, or even taking on responsibilities. So the power of concepts actually connects with philosophy as it helps us understand words and ideas better. For example, the word ownership can mean different things to different people. Philosophy helps everyone agree on what it means, so everyone understands what to do and how to act in a certain way. So moving on to Vibhav.
Yes. So philosophy teaches us to break down complex problems into simpler, solvable parts. Actually, we define ki what is the problem, how are we separating it into small compact packets, and then we question it again. Ki like, how are these small packets? How can we divide those packets into certain problems? Ki what is this, and how can we what it is doing, why is it there, okay, when did this problem happen, and this will help us to find the root cause, basically to question ki why this thing is there, and their answers will help us to find the scalable solutions. Example, ki when faced with a performance issue, we break it down ki what is leading to this performance issue. Maybe may
Yeah.
it be the mindset, maybe may it be the skills, may it be
I think
the
this is clear,
lack of
Vibhor.
coordination.
Let's keep going faster. Yeah.
Okay, so philosophy also equips us to think critically and ask better questions. Basically, we have to question on the question, like we just did, as Tarun included in his example. This will help us to refine the process, ensuring like we move in a constant flow in a continuous improvement pattern. So yeah, that would be that.
Over to question box.
Like you put in the first slide, if we're just simply defining words like we did in a little earlier, and we get stuck on different people have different definitions, then will that not cause a mess?
Question. Got your
Because
question. Back to
then
answer box. How do you deal with the subjectivity of the words, right? If different people have different meaning of the words, how do you deal with that? Back to the answer box.
Okay, so there is one thing I think even I learned today itself. Ki whenever we are explaining anything, we need to understand ki is the person in front of you is understanding what we are saying. So
I
we
don't think
need.
that's what she's saying. What if different people have different definitions of the same thing? How do you deal with that subjectivity?
I guess we have to find the common patterns and the common points that are like available in all of those topics, and then match up those and come up
But
with
what
a
if, no, but what if people have different definitions itself, due to which they're not on one page?
However, in most cases, there are standardized definitions of, explaining something. They might have different perspectives about it, but the definition is standardized.
If it doesn't exist, if there are subjective definitions, then what do you do in that case?
Then you usually do have different perspectives of going about a certain
No, I mean,
thing.
you just answered the question a while back. Just do that, right? What if I have a definition and you have a definition? What do we do then? You're trying to have a philosophical discussion and we are unable to go forward because your definition and my definition are different. Then what do you do?
Then shouldn't we try to collaborate together and come up with a answer which sort of, works with both of us?
Why? I can have my definition, you can have your definition, but for the discussion, we can say that's definition A, that's definition B. Now we are discussing definition A. Then I'll put my definition aside and start discussing definition A because you asked me to discuss definition A.
Mhm. Okay.
The problem is when you've not named it, right? You say, hey, that's A. We are working with A. Then I'm like, okay, fine. This is my B. You're not talking about B right now. That's okay. I will discuss A. So that's a simple answer to our question, right? You don't have standard definitions. Make them first and then start. So it's important. So which is, I think that's a good question, Mariam, because then it's important to start the dialogue with the definitions. And it's not just philosophical discussion, even in a professional conversation, right? When we're having a cross department meeting, it's important to first put out the definitions and then go into the meeting. Because different departments can have different definitions of those words. When we all put one definition and when we agree with the definitions, if you don't agree, we might say, okay, this is definition A, this is definition B. I'm actually referring to definition A. Or come up with a new word altogether, right? So there's no disagreement on that new word that you've coined. Yeah. Back to question box for your question. Mariam, you asked a question. What if this different definition? Her answer is we will put one, we'll define something and then start the discussion. You can follow up on that.
But would that not cause a lot of confusion where we are saying we are talking about definition A and then we're talking about definition B, and in the midst of it, will our will our main objective not get lost?
I guess it's okay to have diversity like we have in India.
But in that process, will it lead to confusion is a question.
It's
Diversity
okay
is fantastic, but can it lead to confusion because people are viewing it differently, right?
ठीक है
But
तो फिर let like उसको like Tarun already said उसको categorize कर दो and let it stay there. Like उसको mix up मत करो. Like be it कि like this is a different thing and this is a different thing, but they do coexist at the same time.
But there is still place for confusion because okay, so we had this conversation in the meeting where we defined two words in two different ways, and then we made notes of that meeting and we moved forward. But then that will not really continue after the meeting has ended, because when we are trying to implement that, then it will all get
Got you.
lost when
So,
we are
Mariam,
talking.
I think I'll frame your question a little differently. So, how do you handle difference of perspective while executing?
If two people have different perspective, we can connect one perspective with the another, how we are actually framing it. Like we can connect that they are whatever they are saying, it's not wrong. But whatever we are saying, how it is connected to the same
Okay,
definition, but they have a different perspective.
fair enough. So, people, let's say people have agreed to what you're saying, but how do you ensure at an execution level it's going in that way?
we can see which one is more relative and impactful. We don't have to, get confused between the two
Let's say
definitions.
people have agreed, we will decide, we will do what to do, but at execution, one is doing it in one way and the other is doing it in another way, and uh, let's say there's one person who wants to make a spicy biryani and the other person wants to make a more flavorful biryani. So this guy is making the rice and this guy is making the chicken. The guy is making the chicken very flavorful and the guy is making the rice very spicy. Your execution is taking a back seat. So how do you, they both agreed to do one thing to make that biryani great. But in execution, this guy is having one instinct, this guy is having one instinct, and both are going in a different direction. So how do you execute well when there's that diversity?
If we had one quality assurance, then we can check if that
But by
person
then the
is.
biryani is already damaged. You throw one biryani then. By the time the QA steps in, it's already done. You throw one biryani.
Maybe
I guess
But still, it will not continuously happen, no? If we
No,
get
but can you do something even before QA comes in? QA is,
SOP,
I
yeah,
I think
exactly.
SOP.
Right?
We can create one SOP and we can hand it over that they can just execute that SOP and
And what if
continue.
there's disappointment over the SOP?
We have to leave a space where they can experiment, but also the main
I guess
idea and main framework will be there. How you have to execute.
No, but if there's disappointment of the SOP, simple, right? Have a Socratic dialogue on the SOP. And then agree on an SOP. Once you agree on an SOP, everybody executes the SOP. So that way, what happens is your execution goes smooth even with the diversity. You have a clear agreed blueprint. Because what happens if you leave it to interpretation?
It will be a chaos.
This is why we make those plans, right? We agree upon certain plans and we give our opinions, we share our perspectives while that plan is being designed.
Maybe we can also have constant feedbacks after the goal is like completed or after it is,
Exactly.
so that any refinements can be made.
Absolutely. But the refinements would be made in the meeting, not outside the meeting.
Yes.
Because what will happen if the refinements are made outside the meeting?
Again, more confusion will be caused.
Exactly. So, depending on the requirement, as Ria said, depending on the requirement, we set the frequency of the meetings. So that in the meeting we can sit down, discuss, and do any refinements. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Mariam?
Yes.
No. If you have the question box, it should
Yes.
never answer your question. You can probe it further.
In addition to that, like in the discussion, so Vibhu, you said that two different things can coexist together. So can you provide me an example where two different things can coexist together?
नहीं कि like you want an example like in DT या फिर वैसे भी मैं दे सकता हूँ like
In general, any example wherein two different things can coexist together?
people of different nationalities live in India, people of different religions live in India. Like India is a secular country, anyone can like be there.
Okay, Yashita, I'll give you a simpler example. So, there's a UX guy who wants the user's life to be simple and the user shouldn't have too many things to deal with. And in the same company, there's a product guy who wants to put a lot of features and give a lot of power to the user. And they both fight each other. Because one is like, cut down those features. I don't want the user to see too many things. And the other person is, I want to build the best product in the world. I want to give all the features in the world, right? And they both exist in the same company.
So then there will
Then
be clashes in any of the new products which are made. So
And
where
if
does
I'm the CEO,
philosophy come
as the
here?
CEO of the company, I want to bring those two people and ensure there are clashes between them.
That will bring out more ideas, no?
It- and that will safeguard the interest, right? On one hand, there's the interest of the product. Is the product getting better? Am I adding good features in the product? But at the same time, is the user being burdened by the features or is it easy enough for the user to use? Both the considerations are taken care, right? With the two people clashing in the interest of the organization. Nothing personal.
But due to the clashing, they may or may not agree on anything. They would keep on clashing between the two things, and that will hamper
If they
the.
keep on clashing, if they take it personally, but if they see it from the organizational objective, there is a way to collaborate and go to a consensus. Let's say I'm a UX guy. I feel it's a burden to the user, but I know that this feature is needed because the organization is propagating a particular vision. Then I start thinking how that feature can be accommodated while simplifying it for the user. I might say, okay, in the first month, don't show that feature. After the user completes 1 month of using the app, then show that feature. I might give that solution. See, you know what, Yashita, what is synthesis? When thesis and antithesis combine, it is synthesis. So when two different people are able to have a healthy conflict, that leads to a completely different idea coming out, right? That's the churning process where two different ideas churn. There's a curd churning process, right? Force, anti-force, curd churning process. See, this hand is applying a force, the other hand is applying anti-force. It's stopping. That's the churning process. So thesis and antithesis lead to synthesis. But how can the clashes be reduced when all of us agree that we are working for the end objectives of the organization? Management by objectives. What's the objective? Our objective is to help the user, say, help the user become very fit, help the user book a cab. So we start looking at which decision is helping in meeting that objective of the user. That can reduce the clash. So this was an interesting intersection of management and philosophy, right? This is where it goes into Peter Drucker, management by objectives. Okay, we'll close the breakout rooms and have the reflection. So yeah, what are your reflections after this discussion? I think it was a pretty foundational discussion. So who'd like to go in first?
Okay, I will go
I
first.
like
Sure, I will go first. So my reflection would be that this was a very knowledgeable session, and it was basically very new to me too. I understood that what is philosophy, but the way we understood from all this session, like the way Tarun questioned and questioned and questioned and questioned, we didn't find any answer. We just questioned everything and just like built some blocks to get to that answer, but we still didn't get to the answer because we are uh, breaking it into the pieces and we are understanding those blocks properly. So I think philosophy is not just about finding answers, it's about breaking into those pieces and understanding those pieces properly and asking question and more questions to understand those clearly.
Okay. Who'd like to go in next?
So yeah, I'd like to go in next. So when we initially started preparing the pitch, we had some knowledge about, why we are studying philosophy. But what we lacked was knowing what exactly is philosophy and how is it connected to the other areas of life or other subjects. How is philosophy related to the other subjects? So through all of this discussion, I got to learn more about how philosophy is related to the other subjects and how philosophy can help us in breaking down all of the work and understanding each and every piece of that work, which leads to clarity in the overall mindset and the overall idea that we are presenting. So it was a very insightful session in that manner.
Thank you, Yashita. Philosophy is in the business of clarity. Yeah.
More than philosophy, I think this session really helped me understand that after having philosophized our ideas and put them into, ask the proper questions that we had to ask, we have to, create frameworks that help us understand, okay, this is where, how we will achieve our objective through that philosophy and not just go into different tangents. So we have to have those kind of frameworks that really keep our objective in tight grasp so that the philosophizing and the questioning part is profitable for us.
Yeah. So, Mariam, I think that was very spot on because that's what philosophers have been doing for the last 2000 years or so, right? They're trying to understand things and they're trying to put that knowledge in a particular structure. And the beauty of philosophy is it's very, very transferable. If you're somebody coming in from a finance background and you want to understand problems from, say, an operations perspective, you can make that knowledge from finance transfer into operations. You're coming from a pharmaceutical background and now you're, let's say, moving into services or you're moving into, say, some other industry, say retail or fashion, right? So you'll be able to transfer the learning from one industry to the another industry by using some of these structures. So I believe philosophy is very powerful, especially in an organization like Deep Thought, where we're in the consulting space, because we'd like our knowledge to be very transferable. We work with one client. That client is in one industry. Client is in one domain. We want to move to a completely different domain. The transferability of the knowledge comes in with, philosophy. And where does the transferability come from? It comes from asking those very foundational questions, and it comes from abstracting out, you know, from the concrete facts, moving into something very general, seeing a very general level principle, right? Universal principles, deriving universal principles out of whatever observations you're making. Like we discuss some universal principles, right? There are two people who are disagreeing. How do you deal with the disagreement? We said, we will define the organizational objective. But that sentence was too abstract. Then we looked at an example. That okay, there's a mobile app you're building, an example. So there you looked at, okay, how can we handle disagreements? So the moment you have that structure, right? Tomorrow you're in a situation where there are disagreements. What do you say? I'll go back to philosophy. I'll go back to the first principles. I'll apply that first principle and handle the disagreement. So philosophy can supply those first principles for us. Yeah. I'd love to take the next reflection.
So what I understood from this, I think philosophy is the greatest subject all among all the subjects, because I think from this philosophy, whatever we learn, we can apply and implement to anything, and we can get the core, the knowledge, and we can, like as you said, it is very transferable. So we can apply it anywhere, and it will help us to get the like transfer everything really easily, because we have the base of the knowledge of philosophy. So yeah, that's all.
Thank you, Suchanda. So in conclusion, I want to ask all of you only one question, right? You've stayed back on a Saturday night this long, so I want to give you some value. So I want to ask you one question. Do you want to be super intelligent creatures? Do you want a lot of intelligence? Do you want insane amount of intelligence? There were people who grew huge beards, who didn't have time to shave. They went inside caves and they kept asking questions and they kept structuring things. And you know what we called them?
Crazy.
Sorry?
Philosophers.
Yeah, we called them philosophers, right? They were in Greece, they were in India, they were all over the world. Philosophy is the first subject, it's the mother subject of all subjects, right? Which is why when you go to the highest level, they give you a PhD. They don't give you, they give you a doctor of philosophy. They don't give you a doctor of science, doctor of psychology, doctor of literature, or doctor of pharmacy. They give you a doctor of philosophy. Because when you go deep into anything, ultimately it becomes philosophy. It's the Newton was not called physicist. Newton was called a natural philosopher. So you want to be really, really smart, really, really intelligent. I think start studying a bit of philosophy. Philosophy is not just somebody who gets drunk and who speaks. That's not philosophy. I think that's kind of what Rishabh was hinting at. So that's not the philosophy. Philosophy is a subject, right? This epistemology, ontology, empiricism, all of these are concepts in philosophy. Like how physics, Newton's laws are there. In philosophy, we have all these concepts. So when we study these concepts, it helps us break into anything with lot more precision and solve problems with more rigor. So if you want to know which book, you can start with one. So um, Instead of book, I can recommend a YouTube series. This is YouTube lecture series of Jakob Barsegyan on history and philosophy of science. It's a very, very interesting series, especially anybody who wants to be a data scientist. I think that will completely give you a different perspective of experiment design and how you can make inferences out of data. So it's a very interesting course for anybody who wants to get a very fundamental perspective of knowledge. History and Philosophy of Science by Jakob Barsegyan. I'm sending the name of the person in Jakob Barsegyan, University of Toronto. History and Philosophy of Science. You can go through that lecture, and 11 lectures of 1 hour each, but it's worth it. It's a very rigorous course, right, for students of University of Toronto. That will give you that in-depth understanding of concepts and help you break things down. So in conclusion, all I'll say is if you want to be super intelligent beings,